Hey, Mike here. I just wanted to let you know that you can listen to Dark Poutine early and ad-free on Amazon Music, included with Prime. Welcome back to Dark Poutine. I am Mike Brown, and what? Who's this guy in the room with me?
Sitting across from you.
In the same room.
I haven't been here for a while.
No, you have not.
Your cats didn't even recognize me.
Well, Egg seemed to recognize you.
Eventually.
Then he was rolling around in your backpack because, you know.
I left it open and he jumped in.
Yeah. Well, I think what it is that he can smell Steve and he's like, oh, well, I'm going to mark this.
Yeah, now Steve's going to be angry with me.
Yeah, you've been cheating on him with a black cat. Anyway.
The views, information, and opinions expressed during the Dark Poutine podcast are solely those of the producer and do not necessarily represent those of Curious Cast, its affiliate, Global News, nor their parent company, Chorus Entertainment.
Dark Poutine is not for the faint of heart or squeamish. Listener discretion is strongly advised. We're not experts on the topics we present, nor are we journalists. We're two ordinary Canadians chatting about crime and the dark side of history. Let's get to it. Put on your toque, grab yourself a double and a Nanaimo bar. It's time to scarf down some Dark Poutine.
You are responsible for obtaining and maintaining at your own cost all equipment needed to listen to Dark Poutine. Dark Poutine can be addictive. Side effects may include, but not be limited to, pausing and questioning the system, elevated heart rate, pondering humanity, odd looks from colleagues as you laugh out loud at work, family members not into true crime worrying about you. Positive side effects may include some perspectives and opinions that you disagree with, as well as some wokeness and empathy. If you don't think Dark Poutine is for you, consult your doctor immediately.
On the morning of August 10th, 2018, the city of Fredericton, New Brunswick was rocked by a horrific shooting that left 4 people dead. A man armed with a legally obtained assault rifle opened fire in a residential neighborhood, killing 2 police officers and 2 civilians. Constables Robb Costello, 45, and Sara Burns, 43, were gunned down as they responded to reports of shots being fired. The civilian victims were 42-year-old Donnie Robichaud and his girlfriend, 32-year-old Bobbie Lee Wright. The perpetrator, 48-year-old Matthew Vincent Raymond, was arrested at the scene after exchanging gunfire with other officers. Raymond was shot in the exchange but survived his wound. He was charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder. At his 2020 trial, 2 psychiatrists testified that he had a mental disorder that rendered him incapable of understanding his violent actions at the time they were committed. On November 20th, 2020, after a 9-week trial, a jury found Raymond not criminally responsible due to a mental disorder. Many members of the public, including some members of the victims' families, feel justice was not served. This is Dark Poutine episode 321, Summer Tragedy, the 2018 Fredericton shooting. Fredericton, the capital city of New Brunswick, boasts a rich history dating back to its founding in 1785 by United Empire Loyalists fleeing the American Revolutionary War. Initially named St. Anne's Point, the city was renamed to honor Frederick, Duke of York. Fredericton became the provincial capital in 1785, replacing St. John, and developed into an important cultural and educational center, hosting institutions such as the University of New Brunswick and St. Thomas University. Throughout its history, Fredericton has been a peaceful city known for its academic and administrative functions rather than industrial ones. However, like any city, it has experienced its share of serious crime. In the 19th century, Fredericton saw incidents related to political unrest and social issues, but remained relatively calm compared to larger urban centers. In the 20th century, Fredericton's crime rate was typically low, reflecting its small size and community-oriented nature. Fredericton has remained a vibrant and historical city, balancing its rich heritage with the challenges and realities of modern urban life, including addressing and managing serious crimes within its community.
You know, from an outsider's perspective, I always think of New Brunswick in general as being this really tranquil place.
Right.
Even though I've never been there.
Yeah.
Right. I think I have this idealized version in my head of what it's like.
Mm-hmm. You're probably more right bang on, to tell you the truth.
At one point, I said to my husband, I'm like, we should move to New Brunswick. I'm like, it's less expensive. It's beautiful. The people are great. And I'm doing this whole sales pitch. And he's like, you've never been there.
Right.
And I'm like, well, that's a good point.
Yeah. No, it's quiet. It's not, I don't think Justin would like it just for the pace of it.
The older I get,
the more you want a slower pace.
And quiet.
Me too. The events of Friday, August 10th, 2018 shook the typically quiet community to its core. Sunrise was at 6:20 a.m. that morning. It was shaping up to be a warm, humid day when David McCubry, a resident of a 4-building red brick apartment complex in the 200 block of Brookside Drive, was awakened by 3 loud bangs at 7:07 a.m. McCubry told reporters, quote, "It sounded like the first one came from right outside my bedroom window. I was hoping for the 2 seconds that I was groggy that it was kids blowing off firecrackers," he said. Then 2 more happened within the first 3 minutes, end quote. Other neighbors were awakened by the commotion. Tim Morehouse in another apartment heard screaming first. Someone was yelling, "Shut up," over and over. Before he could make it to the window to see what was going on, he heard shots. First 2, then 3 more over the next few minutes. When Morehouse finally looked outside, he saw a man lying in a pool of blood in the building's back parking lot. He was unable to see the woman's body who lay close by. He called 911. Police were dispatched to the scene at 7:10 a.m. with reports of an active shooter. It was, according to Sergeant Jason Ford, an all-hands-on-deck situation. Constable Robb Costello was starting his shift, and Constable Sara Burns was finishing hers. In policing, regardless of whether it's the end of your shift or not, especially in this type of situation, you just go. Sara Burns and Robb Costello got into the same patrol car and headed toward the incident. Sergeant Forward followed in a squad car close behind Constables Costello and Burns.
She was, done her shift. And 7 a.m.,
mm-hmm.
No time is a good time for a mass shooting.
No.
But it just feels like, people are getting up. It's the beginning of the day. It seemed like a really odd time for a mass shooting.
After hearing the first shots, Sean Noble and Kendra Snodgrass saw a man and woman later identified as Donnie Robichaud and his girlfriend Bobbie Lee Wright lying on the ground and went outside to see if they could assist. They could find no pulse and waited for the police. They said they ducked behind a car when the shooting resumed as the police arrived. They were later rescued from their hiding place by police using an armored vehicle. The cops got there within minutes of receiving the call. As the patrol cars pulled into the complex, Sergeant Forward, who was in the trailing vehicle, was flagged down by a resident. He stopped briefly chatting with that person while Burns and Costello continued into the complex. Norma Foster, who'd been awakened by the gunfire, had also called 911. She was on the phone with dispatchers when she saw 2 police officers, Burns and Costello, moving to help the victims lying on the pavement in the parking lot. More shots rang out. Norma saw Constable Costello fall to the ground, followed by Constable Burns. It was she who first told the dispatcher that the 2 officers had been shot. Sarah Gould had heard the shots too. She looked out a window of a lower floor and saw a Windows bug screen on the ground. She looked upward and saw a barrel of a gun sticking out a window. She too saw the constables fall. She said that she saw the male constable was hit in the chest and the female had been shot in the back.
I can imagine that these 2 police, probably not expecting in Fredericton,
right,
a sniper.
Right.
Right? They probably didn't run into that. Constable Burns was shot in the back. Do you think, you won't know the answer to this, but did she, when her colleague went down, did she turn to try to escape and he shot her?
That's a good question.
It's just a horrible picture.
Yeah, it's never really been clarified. Hearing the gunfire, Sergeant Forward drove farther down the driveway only to see Donnie Robichaud and the 2 police constables already on the ground, having been shot by an unseen sniper. According to Global News, Forward later said, quote, "I knew at this point I couldn't get to Rob and Sarah. I could be the victim next. I don't know where this guy is or gal. I don't know where they are." He said as he crawled out of his car and onto the ground, quote, "I'm thinking, am I next? I'm thinking, am I next?" End quote. Forward radioed in what he saw and heard, and other officers began arriving quickly but cautiously, staying out of what they presumed to be the line of fire. As the gunfire continued, officers were soon able to determine that it was coming from the windows of one of the top-floor apartments in Building D at 237 Brookside, one of the 4 three-story buildings. Neighborhood residents took note of big happenings as sirens wailed, announcing the arrival of more police to secure the location, all in the hopes of preventing more injuries. There were more police than people knew of in Fredericton. Every officer drove toward Brookside. In addition to ensuring officer safety, the attending police tried getting residents out of the building if they could, while others were told to stay put and take shelter. Some of the people who were told to leave didn't want to. 75-year-old Louise Kennedy refused to leave her apartment because she did not want to abandon her dog. Despite a police officer instructing her to stay away from the windows and lock the doors, Kennedy told reporters, "I couldn't leave my dog behind." While her devotion to her pet was apparent, Kennedy could not shake her intense fear given the dangerous situation. The elderly woman was determined to protect her canine companion at all costs, even as she trembled with palpable dread inside her residence.
Why couldn't she just take the dog with her?
I have a feeling it was probably like a heat-of-the-moment thing. The cop said, just leave the dog here and come on yourself. And I don't think there was a big discussion about it,
I 100% wouldn't leave Steve behind.
Yeah, I wouldn't leave Egg and Waffles behind either. I'm not leaving them behind to get accidentally shot.
But I wouldn't have been like, I'm going to stay. I would have scooped Steve up and ran.
Well, I have a little double-decker carrying case for my kitties. So I would just slam them in there
and run. With Steve, that time we had the fire in my building?
Yep.
And I'd carry him down like 10 floors.
Oh, gosh.
He actually let me do it because he
knew.
He realized there was something wrong, so he actually let me do it.
David McCoubrey stayed too. He took cover on his kitchen floor. In a phone interview with local media, as the incident unfolded, a shaken McCoubrey said that police were searching all the apartments in the 4 buildings surrounding the courtyard where the gunfire appeared to be concentrated. Constable Brett Arbo was the 3rd officer to arrive at 237 Brookside Drive on the morning of the shootings. He watched Constables Costello and Burns drive to the complex's back while Sergeant Jason Forward stopped to speak with a resident. As Arbo was getting out of his car and putting on his body armor, he heard gunshots, and Forward reported that 2 officers were down. More officers, including members of the RCMP tactical team, arrived, and they determined that the shots were coming from a top-floor apartment with bullet holes in the window. At 7:47 a.m., Fredericton police tweeted asking people to avoid the Brookside Drive area due to an ongoing incident. At 7:53 a.m., they announced a lockdown instructing residents to stay inside with doors locked between Main and Ring Roads for safety. A resident named Parissa Motelabikia described bullets entering her apartment, nearly striking her son's bed. Another witness awoke to gunshots around 8 a.m., and soon more shooting erupted after a brief pause. By 8:17 a.m., police confirmed multiple fatalities. Between 8:20 and 8:30 a.m., more gunshots were heard as video showed police firing tear gas into an apartment window. A witness inside that building recalled noise like slamming dumpster lids, followed by screams and more gunfire. At 8:31 a.m., at least 4 deaths were confirmed in the tragic shooting incident that paralyzed the neighborhood that morning. The police presence and cordoned-off area disrupted local businesses. Bill Henwood, a funeral director, was among the bystanders who were prevented from accessing offices behind the investigative perimeter. People waited nearby in their cars or on foot, hoping for updates when they could proceed. As a precaution, one daycare relocated children to a facility further from the shooting scene. The volume of calls to the police station was so large that police asked the public not to call about the event anymore, as the lines were jammed and other emergencies also needed attention. Around 8:53 a.m., New Brunswick Premier Brian Gallant expressed that the province was shocked and saddened about the events. Approximately 20 minutes later, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau conveyed his condolences regarding the tragic situation. The PM wrote, quote, "Awful news coming out of Fredericton. My heart goes out to everyone affected by this morning's shooting. We're following the situation closely." End quote. Police inside the apartment building found they could not enter the apartment they'd since learned belonged to a 48-year-old man named Matthew Vincent Raymond. Although police had managed to knock holes in the apartment door with a sledgehammer successfully, the door remained barricaded. As they did not know where the shooter was inside the apartment, it was impossible to enter safely. He'd already shot 2 constables, and it was unlikely he was going to stop there, as he'd continued yelling and firing through his living room window. Constable Arbo, armed with a scoped rifle, was instructed to shoot the suspect if he tried firing again. He saw the suspect yelling and making gestures from inside his apartment. At one point, the suspect raised his rifle, so Arbo tried to shoot, but his gun misfired initially, so he had to retreat behind cover. After clearing the blockage, Arbo retook his position, looking through his scope toward the suspect. The suspect was still in the window. Arbo said that the armed man then appeared to scan the area slowly before locking his eyes with Arbo and raising his firearm to point directly at him. Arbo yelled, "Gun, gun," and pulled the trigger of his carbine, striking the suspect in the abdomen area and causing him to spin and fall quickly out of sight. Arbo remained in position until cleared to move by other officers, describing it as seeming a very long time. Around 9:30 a.m., presuming that their suspect had been hit by a round from Constable Arbo's rifle, the RCMP emergency team went into action inside the apartment building's hallway outside the doorway of the suspect's suite. Many recalled that the scene was chaotic. RCMP Corporal Mark Simon used a chainsaw to remove the door. He later testified, quote, "Things were moving very fast." RCMP Corporal Jeremy Harding was one of the first officers responding. To help determine whether it was safe to enter, he deployed a robotic vehicle with a camera to gain vital intelligence on the suspect's position and actions inside the apartment. The video showed the suspect lying in a shooting position on the floor, ominously pointing the muzzle of the rifle at the doorway that the officers would need to breach. Harding relayed what he saw to the other officers, who began shouting, "This is the police. We're outside in the hallway. Give yourself up. Drop the gun. Drop the gun." Harding positioned his own body to use the outside wall as cover, angling himself so that his body armor would, quote, "soak up any rounds that were fired at me from the apartment," end quote. On the monitor, Harding observed the suspect trying to interfere with or disable the robot by throwing objects at it. However, in a pivotal moment, the suspect temporarily removed his hands from the rifle. Harding seized this opportunity and ordered the other officers to breach and storm the apartment.
So the part where he was turning so his armor could soak up the rounds?
Yeah.
Can you imagine the pair of danglers it takes to be like, okay, this is what I'm going to do?
Yeah.
I mean, that's brave.
It actually is.
That is so brave.
Because I'm thinking, where can I find something big and thick and made of concrete to put in front of me? Yeah. Officer Como was part of the entry team that climbed and maneuvered over the debris the suspect had used to barricade the door. Once inside the living room area, Como reacquired a visual on the still armed and incredibly dangerous suspect who was turning the rifle to bear directly on the officers. Como recalled, quote, "The last thing I remember seeing is the gun barrel being pointed right at me," end quote. Raising his ballistic shield, Como made the split-second decision to charge and attempt to subdue the subject through physical force. He jumped onto the suspect and began raining down punches to incapacitate him while yelling for other officers to assist with restraining the suspect and removing the firearm from his control. Even as multiple officers were now wrestling with him, Comeau was surprised that the suspect continued to vigorously resist and fight against being apprehended. During this intense physical struggle, Officer Simon was able to strip away the rifle from the suspect's possession successfully. Meanwhile, Harding observed the suspect reaching for what he described as a sizable knife, prompting Harding to rapidly move in and secure that potential secondary weapon before the suspect could access it. Despite the suspect being significantly outnumbered, wounded, and having his rifle seized, he maintained his frenzied resistance until finally being fully restrained and detained. The courageous actions of the officers likely prevented a tragic escalation and further loss of life.
Yeah, I mean, that's some damn fine police work.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and also, there's that old sort of trope where the cops are so angry that they just kill the guy.
Yeah.
That didn't happen in this situation. The suspect, positively identified as Matthew Vincent Raymond, was transported to Dr. Everett Chalmers Regional Hospital. Kaylee Bowen was a training paramedic when she was called to the scene on August 10th. She said that Matthew Raymond said 3 sentences to her as she was in the back of the ambulance with him. "They were outside my window. They were taunting me. It's not my fault. They made me do it." End quote. At 10:28 a.m., Fredericton police confirmed by tweet that 2 of its officers had been slain. They wrote, quote, "Of the 4 people killed in this morning's shootings on Brookside Drive, 2 were Fredericton police officers. No names are being released at this time. Please appreciate this difficult time for their families and our colleagues. We will provide more info when we can." End quote. The police set up a perimeter and secured the area, ensuring there were no further suspects or other threats until approximately 11:04 a.m. when they called all clear and eased the lockdown. The focus now fell on the apartment complex as a meticulous investigation was underway, and forensics teams gathered all the evidence. As the investigation continued, over 50 terrorized and traumatized neighbors, residents of the apartment complex, were provided with alternative housing. More after a quick break.
A $6 billion con.
It didn't take long for it to spread like wildfire.
You got to take a look at this really crazy gold stock. A buddy of mine got in at a dime.
Which destroyed lives and devastated communities.
Every little town across the nation, people have shares in this.
We lost everything.
And to date, no one has been brought to justice.
Somebody knows more than we know.
The $6 billion gold scam. From the BBC World Service and CBC. Search for the $6 billion gold scam wherever you get your podcasts.
The island of Newfoundland keeps its secrets close, shrouds them in mystery. But once in a while, the fog is lifted, the truth comes out.
I get a feeling there's something going on here. My whole body was shaking.
You go to bed believing that you're a certain person one night, and then all of a sudden the next day, everything that you've known is not true.
This is not the life that I should have lived.
I'm Luke Quinton from CBC. This is Come By Chance. Available now.
And we are back. Matthew, thoughts?
It just felt like it happened so fast.
Mm-hmm.
Right? 7 a.m. Before you know it, 4 people are dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? It's so fast.
Yeah, it's crazy. At 11:06, Dr. Everett Chalmers Regional Hospital tweeted, causing some confusion. They said that they were treating multiple shooting victims, leading to speculations that others had been shot. This was later clarified. All 4 of the deceased victims had been brought to that hospital. The only survivor was Matthew Raymond, who doctors worked to save. The RCMP handled the homicide investigation into the shooting, and as police officers were involved, the Serious Incident Response Team from Nova Scotia investigated the deaths of Constable Sara Burns and Constable Lawrence Robb Costello. In Canada, when police officers are involved in incidents resulting in death or serious injury, outside police organizations or independent agencies are called in to ensure impartiality and maintain public trust. This practice reduces potential conflicts of interest and helps preserve public confidence in the justice system by avoiding perceptions of favoritism. Independent bodies like the Nova Scotia Serious Incident Response Team, SIRT, and the British Columbia Independent Investigations Office, IIO, possess specialized expertise and resources for handling sensitive cases. Additionally, legal mandates often require independent investigations to uphold justice, ensure transparency, and maintain the integrity of the process.
That's really smart, and that was probably developed after trial and error over many years, right?
Yep.
Because, people sometimes protect their own.
Sure.
Right?
Yep.
In any sort of, even in business, right? People can do that.
Yep.
And the UK has, I guess the British Columbia Independent Investigations Office is similar to the PCC in the UK, the Police Complaints Commission.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, well, they have those kind of things here.
And they're not police, right?
I'm not entirely sure.
Okay.
The next morning, at 10:54 a.m., police released the name of the suspect, Matthew Vincent Raymond, 48, of Fredericton, who was charged with first-degree murder in the shooting deaths of Constable Lawrence Robert Robb Costello, 45, Constable Sara Helen Burns, 43, Donald Adam Robichaud, 42, and Bobbie Lee Wright, 32. While the investigation continued, the community reeled, shocked by what had happened. Details about the lives of the 4 victims emerged over the next few days. Bobbie Lee Wright and Donnie Robichaud had been the first to die. They'd done nothing other than walk outside just before Matthew Raymond started his shooting spree. According to CTV News, quote, "They were going to go ziplining after work. They were packing up the car before work, and that's when they got shot," said Melissa Robichaud, Donald's wife, from whom he had recently separated, end quote. Donnie Robichaud was a devoted father of 3, 2 teenage sons, Zachary and Drayden, and a daughter, Chloe. According to his cousin, Sean Callahan, he played bass and sang in several local bands. Callahan shared the day after the shooting that Donnie worked in auto body shops, enjoyed riding his Harley Davidson, and was well known for being ready to help others. According to Global News, Callahan said, quote, "The guy was so likable. I don't think he had anybody that hated him. And Donnie, if he hated you, he'd still give you the shirt off his back. He would help you out," end quote.
I've never met a bass player I didn't like.
Yeah.
My brother is a bass player.
Yeah, I have a good friend who's a bass player, and he's a pretty cool guy.
The bass players are always sort of the most chill guys in the band.
They're kind of the backbone.
Boom, boom, boom,
yeah.
You know, slow and steady. Yeah.
Both Melissa Robichaud and Sean Callahan confirmed that Donnie and Bobbie had recently started dating, having met online about 2 weeks prior and had their first date only a week before they were killed. Melissa Robichaud shared that her family was planning a wake for Donnie. They intended to honor his memory in a way that reflected his passion for his Harley Davidson and his battle with kidney disease, hoping that people would donate to the Kidney Foundation in his memory. Friends of Bobbie Lee Wright expressed their sorrow, reminiscing about the close-knit group that bonded in junior high. Leighton, a friend, described her friend as one of the nicest girls she'd ever known, always friendly and never in conflict with anyone. Although their contact had lessened recently, their group remained close whenever they reunited. Leighton recalled Bobbie as a quiet, cheerful girl who loved spending time with friends. According to Bobbie Lee Wright's obituary, she was born in Fredericton on November 13, 1985. She graduated from Canterbury High School in 2003 and earned a diploma in medical office administration from New Brunswick Community College in 2008. She worked on a tree farm, catered, and held office positions throughout her career before finding her true calling as a home support worker. This role was ideal for her. She loved helping others and was known for her compassion.
It's just crazy that both Bobbie and Donnie's lives ended like this at this time in the morning. Just getting, new relationship, gonna go ziplining that day.
Yep.
Just so out of the blue.
They're just getting to know each other, and then some person just shoots them. They're just randomly there.
I guess these things, No matter what happens, it's always sort of sudden. Like when my father died, somebody asked me, was it sudden?
Right.
And, my dad was sick for years.
But it's still sudden.
But I'm like, well, one second he was there and the next second he wasn't. So yeah, it was. And they're like, oh, I didn't mean it that way. I'm like, no, but it's always sudden. Yeah.
Affectionately nicknamed Bubbles, those who knew Bobbie well felt the nickname perfectly captured her personality. Bobbie Lee was proud of her hair, often worn down or styled in her signature bun. She always saw the good in people and situations, prioritizing others before herself. She loved camping, tubing, bonfires, and spending late nights with friends and family, creating and reminiscing over cherished memories. One of her favorite activities was researching family ancestry, and she would light up with excitement whenever she discovered new information about her family or those she knew. The Sunday after the shooting, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and his son Hadrian went to Fredericton Police Headquarters to lay flowers at the memorial and offer condolences. In a nationwide media interview, Melissa Robichaud later expressed her disgust that even though Trudeau was in town, he didn't reach out to Donnie's family in any way at any time. There wasn't even a phone call to give condolences to her or Donnie's kids. She perceived this situation as, okay, they're civilians. The civilians were less important than the police for some reason.
So she took it as a slight.
Yes. Yeah.
Flip side of that.
Yeah.
2 points. Number one, if you're a politician, how do you judge if you want to get into somebody's personal space at a tragic time like that?
From what I've seen, it is kind of the go-to thing to do.
I would never, ever want Trudeau or any other politician calling me up.
I wouldn't be okay with that either.
I would the last person I would ever want to speak to at a point like this would be a bloody politician.
It'd be like, yeah, thanks for calling, but yeah.
Go figure out how to lower taxes and like fix parole boards, please.
Yes, exactly.
Stop wasting your time harassing me.
Yeah. Constable Sara May Helen Burns, Regimental Number 401, was born on July 5th, 1975 in St. Andrews, Fife, Scotland. Constable Burns joined the Fredericton Police Force on March 18, 2016, after serving as an auxiliary member for over 2 years. She graduated from Fredericton High School in 1994 and then from the Atlantic Police Academy in 2015. Known for her infectious smile and kind demeanor, Sara instantly put everyone at ease. She could be heard daily proclaiming, "I love my job." Sara's husband, Steve Burns, expressed his excitement for Sara joining the force in a Facebook post. Quote, "My beautiful and talented Sara May is now the latest City of Fredericton police officer. She has been on this path for almost 4 years now, and starting with her criminology degree and going back to school at the age of 35 while helping raise our boys. Then having to leave home and the boys for 6 months to follow her dream at the Atlantic Police Academy, then going through the entire process with the city over the past year, but it's all been worth it because as of 8:20 this morning, she is now sworn in." End quote. After her death, the Burns family released a statement, quote, "After the tragic events that took place earlier today, we would like to offer our sincerest condolences to the family of Constable Robb Costello and the other victims who lost their lives. Our thanks go out to the Fredericton police officers and all the other first responders who answered the call and came to help. Sara absolutely loved her job and went to work each shift committed to serving this great community. We appreciate all of the thoughts and prayers during this difficult time and respectfully ask for privacy as we grieve." In addition to her husband, Sara Burns was survived by her 3 children.
When I see a female police officer killed, it brings out a stronger emotion in me than a male police officer.
Yep.
And I feel like that's wrong and maybe sexist, but it's not intellectual. It's actually it's my immediate gut feeling.
Sure.
Right? And Natalie's like, Matthew, she's like, I've had these conversations with my husband, with my kids. She's like, I have a boy, I have a girl. And she said, it depends where it's coming from. And she said, there's good protection and there's bad protection of men and women, etc. Right?
Yeah.
And she's like, it's just your reaction. It's just how maybe you grew up in a way, or maybe she's like, hey, listen, like Natalie's, she has a lot of police in her family. And she knows, she's like, listen, you have one police officer in your family who's a woman. She's like, maybe you're connecting it to that, and I'm not sure. But I was just aware enough to realize that when I saw these photos, like, I feel bad for all of them, obviously, but for some reason it just hits different.
Well, it was different when we were kids because you didn't see a lot of female police officers when we were younger. That's a long time ago, but we didn't see a lot of that. So we kind of grew up believing, I think personally for myself, that it was a little more difficult. It was a little more difficult for a woman to become a police officer.
And many other things in life.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think maybe that...
Because of who we our age, but also who we are,
right?
Open-minded people.
Yeah,
I root for women in, quote, non-traditional jobs, right?
Yeah.
And so when something bad happens, maybe I'm feeling worse about it. I don't know.
What would be really cool is if there was never any kind of non-traditional role thing.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Yeah,
and that's honestly, it's that's why I did quote, right? Because when you and I grew up, right?
It was very different.
There was traditional roles, right? And we're the first generation really getting out of that crap.
Yep.
But yeah, and Natalie said, Matthew, the fact that you actually had the brain to just kind of even recognize that you felt that way.
Yeah.
It says to me, don't worry about it, dude.
Yeah, exactly. Constable Lawrence Robert Robb Costello, Regimental Number 306, was born May 30th, 1973 in St. John, New Brunswick. Constable Costello joined the Fredericton Police Force on June 1st, 1998, after graduating from the Atlantic Police Academy. Over his 20-year career, he served commendably in patrols, major crime, and the Integrated Child Exploitation Unit on secondment with the RCMP. Known for his big smile and positivity, Robb embodied the phrase, living the dream. Costello was known for his professionalism, dedication to helping others, and ability to diffuse situations with a calm and positive demeanor. Robb Costello grew up in the small rural community of Sussex, about an hour's drive from St. John. From a young age, Costello displayed qualities that made him well suited for a career in law enforcement. He was selfless, valued putting others first, and had a headstrong sense of teamwork instilled through playing basketball in high school. Robb was described as the single most positive person by his common-law partner of 4 years, Jackie McLean. Despite the often challenging nature of his work, he always came home with a smile. Costello had a way of connecting with people and was the rare officer who could write a ticket and have the recipient thank him for it. He was a devoted family man, leaving behind his spouse, 2 children, and 2 stepchildren.
He really does look like the way he describes though, doesn't he?
Right, yeah.
Like, you can't tell just by looking, but sometimes when we do the show and you Mike puts the pictures in the script specifically to humanize people while we're doing it.
Yeah.
And you can actually see the positivity in his face. He actually exudes a good guy.
Yeah,
right?
he has kind eyes.
Yeah.
Costello's death was a devastating loss, not only for his family and the Fredericton police force, but for the entire community he had sworn to protect. His selflessness, positivity, and commitment to serving others indelibly impacted all who knew him. Costello's tragic passing served as a sobering reminder of all the sacrifices made by first responders every day. Thousands gathered in Fredericton to honor Constables Robb Costello and Sara Burns at a regimental funeral following their tragic deaths in the Northside shooting. The service at a local arena saw police and first responders march in memoriam with civilians lining the procession route. Speeches by loved ones, colleagues, and dignitaries highlighted the kindness and compassion of the fallen officers. Fredericton Police Chief Leanne Fitch, and Burns' husband, delivered emotional tributes emphasizing the heroism and selflessness of Costello and Burns.
Yeah, it sounds like the city lost two really great police officers that day.
Yeah.
You know, it's, they really, just from what I read, because I did a bit of research, so they were really the good guys.
Yeah.
You know?
The ceremony also honored the civilian victims Bobbie Lee Wright and Donnie Robichaud with heartfelt acknowledgments from Burns' husband. The service included laying caps and belts on the caskets, a bilingual rendition of O Canada, and a smudging ceremony by St. Mary's First Nation elder Imelda Purley. Despite the rain reflecting the city's sorrow, the community and dignitaries, including New Brunswick Premier Brian Gallant and Lieutenant Governor Jocelyn Roy-Vigneault, paid their respects, promising to remember the sacrifices made by these dedicated officers. While first responders mourned their fallen comrades, Fredericton bikers gathered for a fundraiser and rode to honor Donnie Robichaud. The event at the Fredericton Exhibition Centre aimed to raise money for trust funds for Robichaud's 3 children. Tony Pollock, a friend of Robichaud, emphasized the community's support, describing Robichaud as almost like a younger brother. Robichaud, a former member of the Bacchus Motorcycle Club, was remembered fondly by his friends. Pollock and Clarence Ivany spoke of their close bond with Robichaud, highlighting his generosity and friendly nature. Despite the event coinciding with the regimental funerals for the fallen officers, organizer Foster Bullock stressed that the timing was coincidental. He underscored the unity between the biking community and first responders.
No, it's good that he did that.
Yeah.
But Bacchus is such a cool name for a motorcycle club.
Yeah.
You know, you haven't been to any of my big parties, have you?
Not really, no. I've never been invited, Matthew.
It was before I knew you. I'm getting old enough, but I used to throw bacchanalias, not parties.
Right. Yeah, Bacchanalia sounds so decadent and like...
And they were.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bacchus was the god of wine, ecstasy, and shared madness or something like that.
Not the drug ecstasy, although that was probably present maybe at some time.
No, maybe.
Descriptions of Matthew Raymond were more mixed, and soon a picture of a disturbed person began to emerge. Some neighbors described Matthew Raymond as polite and quiet. Judith Aguilar, an office manager for Sunfield Apartment Rentals, the complex's owners, mentioned that Raymond was an avid cyclist who paid his rent in cash while wearing a bike helmet. Aguilar recalled when maintenance workers needed to perform repairs inside Raymond's apartment, but Raymond insisted on being present during the work. He seemed concerned. He said he had an expensive computer and an expensive bike, and he didn't want anyone to be there alone, she said. They didn't even have to go all the way into the apartment. They were just fixing his door frame at the time. End quote.
Yeah, I don't find that strange at all.
I kind of don't either, to tell you the
like,
truth.
I wouldn't want workers in my house just willy-nilly without me there.
Yeah. If I'm not home, I don't want you in here.
No, exactly.
Yeah. Unless you're my buddy Wes, who's agreed to feed my cats. That's different. Brendan Doyle, the former owner of Reed's Newsstand and Cafe in Fredericton, said he asked Raymond to stop frequenting his coffee shop after Raymond allegedly expressed Islamophobic views and shared his dislike for Syrian refugees with patrons. Quote, he'd been coming in almost daily for coffee since 2010 and stayed for an hour or two on the patio in the evenings, Doyle told the Canadian Press. He was the kind of lonely person who would talk your ear off if you let him, end quote. According to a CBC News article, Matthew Vincent Raymond was active on Twitter under the name Colt C8 for about 4 years. His tweets often focused on first-person shooter video games such as Battlefield and Call of Duty, and he frequently posted screenshots of his game characters and weapons on the PC game marketplace Steam. He also commented on the 2014 Moncton shootings, agreeing that the focus should be on the slain officers rather than the shooter, and he criticized people for tweeting police positions during the manhunt. Raymond had a minimal social media presence, making gathering information about his life difficult. However, his gaming accounts provided some insights. he created accounts on multiple platforms using various aliases where he shared clips of games, discussed computer equipment, and engaged with other gamers. Raymond played a mix of racing and first-person shooter games on his Xbox account, and his bio stated, quote, "There is my way and the right way, both are the same." In 2013, he switched from Xbox to PC gaming, amassing over 479 hours on the first-person shooter game Heroes and Generals on Steam. Despite his extensive online gaming activities, Raymond's last tweet in March 2017 was directed at a tactical gear review website inquiring about batons, which he noted were hard to find in Canada. Those who knew Raymond described him as friendly, yet odd, noting his passion for cycling and video games. Some questioned whether he could separate reality from his games, though millions of others played similar games without issue, myself included. Raymond's online activity wasn't limited to gaming. He occasionally weighed in on current events and supported various online petitions, such as those for marijuana legalization and the imprisonment of an Iranian woman who attended a men's volleyball game. In 2014, he tweeted about a local incident involving Peter Bryden, who sustained a mysterious head injury during the Harvest Jazz and Blues Festival. Raymond described it as a, quote, terrible tragedy and urged people to report any information. The forensic evidence, collected from multiple crime scenes around the apartment complex and Matthew Vincent Raymond's apartment, provided crucial insights into the tragic shootings. Police seized a semi-automatic SKS rifle and a shotgun along with approximately 2,000 rounds of ammunition from Raymond's residence. Ballistic analysis revealed 22 spent rifle casings and 7 spent shotgun shells scattered across 2 different rooms, indicating the firearms were discharged multiple times. Autopsies conducted on the 4 victims, Donnie Robichaud, Bobbie Lee Wright, and police constables Robb Costello and Sara Burns, showed that each had been shot at least once in the head, with some sustaining additional gunshot wounds to other parts of their bodies. This grim evidence aligned with witness accounts of Raymond indiscriminately firing at his neighbors and the responding police officers. Investigators also uncovered a trove of Raymond's personal writings, including notebooks and flyers containing disturbing content about demons and conspiracies. These materials, coupled with evidence from his computer and internet searches, painted a picture of a man consumed by delusional beliefs. In the months leading up to the shootings, Raymond had scoured the internet for videos and websites related to demons, serpents, and conspiracy theories propagated by fringe groups. Notably, RCMP computer forensic experts found videos saved on Raymond's computer from a conspiracy YouTube channel that provided instructions on how to identify demons based on their appearance and use of symbols like 666. Raymond had even compiled a list of names of individuals he believed to be demons based on his interactions with a conspiracy theorist online. This wealth of forensic evidence helped establish Raymond's deteriorating mental state and the delusional thought process that ultimately led to the tragic loss of 4 innocent lives.
Yeah, however, conspiracy theories are kind of becoming mainstream in some ways.
Well, this is the thing, especially, recently we're seeing some things in the news where I'm like, this is a mass idea that people are sticking with?
And you see it on the left and on the right.
Oh yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
And it's so just to call it like there must have been more, because somebody who's reading conspiracy theories, if that was the only thing to consider them insane, then like 3/4 of the population are insane.
Right. So there are no children being eaten by Democrats in the basement of pizza parlors in Washington, D.C. Just FYI. 2 weeks after the shootings, musicians like Tristan Horncastle decided to come together in song to support locals and first responders. The Fredericton Strong benefit concert featured Atlantic Canadian talents such as Matt Hayes, Matt Anderson, Classified, Neon Dreams, and country singer-songwriter Horncastle. David Miles, a Fredericton native based in Halifax, hosted the concert at the University of New Brunswick Aitken Centre on October 6th. Proceeds went to local organizations like the Chalmers Foundation, the Canadian Mental Health Association New Brunswick chapter, and the Red Cross. The concert aimed to heal the community and honor first responders, with artists coming together for a final performance. Jones emphasized music's healing power, particularly in small communities where the impact of such tragedies is deeply felt. Over 9 grueling weeks, beginning in mid-September 2020, the courtroom bore witness to a deluge of disturbing evidence and expert testimony surrounding Matthew Vincent Raymond's fragile mental state. While Raymond entered a plea of not guilty, his defense hinged on the premise that he should be found not criminally responsible due to a mental disorder, NCR-MD. That disorder rendered him incapable of understanding the nature and consequences of his violent actions, said his lawyers. This argument was bolstered by a trove of forensic evidence, including the seized firearms, thousands of rounds of ammunition, and Raymond's rambling notebooks filled with delusional scrawlings about demons and outlandish conspiracy theories. Further examination of his digital footprint revealed a man who had become increasingly consumed by fringe and conspiracy videos, hoaxes, and a fixation on numerology in the years preceding the tragedy. 2 psychiatric experts took the stand, one diagnosing Raymond with schizophrenia and the other with a delusional disorder, both asserting these conditions would have significantly impaired his ability to appreciate the wrongfulness of his acts. Raymond himself testified that in the days leading up to the shootings on August 10, 2018, he had become consumed by delusional beliefs that the world was controlled by a powerful cabal of demons. He said he believed he had been given the power by God to identify these demons. On the night before the shootings, Raymond said he stayed up all night writing out numerical calculations as he had become fixated on numerology and conspiracy theories. The next morning, he modified the magazine of his rifle to hold more bullets. When he looked out the window of his apartment, Raymond testified that he saw what he believed were 2 demons and opened fire. He said he moved between the windows, firing at everything that moved, believing he had shot 7 demons in total. However, the prosecutor challenged Raymond's assertions that he did not know his actions were wrong during cross-examination. At one point, Raymond sobbed and said, "I'm so sorry," to the families. Raymond also stated that he no longer believes demons walk the earth and that those delusional beliefs began to fade while receiving treatment at a psychiatric hospital after the arrest. The jury had to weigh this testimony against the prosecution's arguments in determining criminal responsibility. After 4 days of deliberation, the jury ultimately accepted the defense's arguments, finding Matthew Vincent Raymond not criminally responsible on November 20th, 2020. The judge instructed that this verdict hinged on their belief that Raymond was actively suffering from a mental disorder that made him incapable of realizing his actions were wrong. As a result, Raymond was remanded to a psychiatric hospital with a future disposition hearing to assess whether he should be, quote, designated a high-risk accused. The disturbing case garnered national attention, shining a tragic spotlight on the devastating impacts of untreated mental illness and delusional thinking. While the not criminally responsible verdict provided a sense of resolution, it could do little to assuage the unimaginable grief and loss suffered by the victims' families and the community of Fredericton. The trial served as a sobering reminder of the vital need for improved access to mental health resources and support. The courtroom was awash with raw emotion as the NCR verdict was announced, eliciting an outpouring of grief and conflicting perspectives. Relatives of the victims, including Jackie McLean, the widow of slain officer Robb Costello, could not contain their anguish. Huddled together, they sobbed openly. While not entirely unexpected for McLean, the decision was, quote, a bitter pill to swallow. She felt the mental health system had initially failed the Raymond family, and now the criminal justice system had devastatingly failed her and the other victims' loved ones. In stark contrast, Raymond's defense team firmly believed the NCR ruling was appropriate. Lead attorney Nathan Gorham asserted his client was, quote, very, very ill at the time of the shootings and simply, quote, incapable of appreciating, end quote, the catastrophic failure of his actions. Gorham lamented the adversarial structure of the trial, expressing a preference for, quote, less combative process once guilt is acknowledged to prevent victims' families from feeling there are, quote, winners or losers. The prosecution, which had argued Raymond's delusional beliefs, waxed and waned in intensity and were not pervasive enough to absolve criminal responsibility. They didn't directly comment on the verdict itself. However, Fredericton's police chief, Roger Brown, urged the community to respect the jury's decision. At the same time, his thoughts remained with the grieving families, the Raymond family, and the entire police force shaken by the tragedy. Ultimately, the NCR ruling exposed the profound divide between those devastated by a perceived lack of justice and accountability and the legal principles which found Raymond's debilitating mental illness rendered him not criminally culpable. As the city began the long process of healing, the verdict served as a haunting reminder of the dire need for improved mental health care and support systems. In 2021, Matthew Vincent Raymond was denied new privileges by a New Brunswick review board. At the time, Raymond was being held at the Restigouche Hospital Centre in Campbellton, New Brunswick, and was previously deemed high risk by the court. The review board declined to grant him additional privileges as a structured plan for his treatment had not been prepared. However, the board allowed Raymond's mother to visit him at the hospital since COVID-19 restrictions had been eased. During the hearing, Raymond expressed remorse for his actions, stating he is, quote, very sorry and thought about the victims, quote, all the time. There have been no further updates as to the status of Matthew Vincent Raymond. Only a very small portion of accused persons are found to be NCR-MD. The legal test for this is strict, and many accused individuals with mental illness do not meet the threshold or choose to raise the defense. A Statistics Canada survey from 2005 to 2012 found that less than 1% of the accused were determined to be NCR-MD, excluding Quebec. I guess they just didn't do the survey there. In summary, while a number of people charged with serious crimes in Canada are found NCR-MD each year due to mental disorders impairing their rational capacity at the time, exact yearly counts or percentages are not provided. The NCR-MD regime seeks to balance public safety with treatment options for this group.
This is a big conversation.
It is.
And I've been feeling...
Are you insane?
No, I've been feeling like probably only 0.00001% of the feelings of family members who have lost somebody due to manslaughter or not guilty because of reason of insanity.
Yep.
And the longer I do this show and frankly talk to and meet more people, the more I start feeling those feelings.
Right.
And while as a society, you know, think of society as a triangle, right? You know, the family that's at the tip of that triangle that have been done wrong is the sharp end of society, and they're getting the brunt of the loss, the pain, right? And then the rest of us, it sort of dissipates as it goes down, right? Does that make sense at all?
It does. I mean, the further you are away from an event personally, the easier it is for you to deal with that event.
And when somebody's killed somebody, yes, it harms society, but they've killed the person that somebody else loves. Yeah. And while insanity, like, you know, almost everyone tries to do an insanity plea, right, Mike? Like And of course, and we've discussed this before, you know, if somebody is truly, you know, out of their minds, then they don't know the difference, then you can't just treat them the same way.
Right.
But at the same time, we have to give something to the people who have lost somebody. Right? And it's hard. And I think with the way that the government and the parole boards and everybody have been handling the criminal justice system in a general way, like, a lot of faith is being eroded anyway.
Right.
So it's really important that, you know, we don't just jump on just somebody else getting away with it again when there's an actual insanity case, right? But as a society, we're starting to maybe do that more because we see so much failure.
Right.
It's hard.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. It's like...
It's hard. It's so hard.
How? Where's the line? Like, where's the line? Where's the actual justice line? And I guess that's why we have laws and we have mitigating circumstances that go along with those laws if they're breached. You know, it's like society creates this situation, and I hate to use this sort of analogy, but whichever way the wind is blowing, is kind of the way that law goes.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. I mean, it takes some time for things to change, and it takes some doing. It takes some effort, but it seems like whichever way the wind is blowing politically is the way that the law goes.
Yeah, and like I'm not going to name names. I was speaking to somebody this morning who had somebody that they love murdered.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And who has, the people have got parole.
Yes.
And so I was having this conversation, then I open up today's script, and I just did not want to do this today. Because
but maybe this is the day to do it.
Maybe today is the day to do it. It's so hard. Like, I'm actually really emotional about this today. It's tough stuff, and I honestly feel like, I think before I started doing the show with you, I didn't really pay attention to things like this.
No.
But now that I am, and I'm meeting people, and I'm just sort of like, oh, but now I'm one of the people who has paid attention, and I know, and I can see how wrong so much is,
And that's the thing. Once you start to pay attention to it,
it's hard.
Well, what's hard is remaining mum.
You can't.
No.
Right? Yeah.
And no, you can't.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a weird one today.
Yes. As with any mass shooting, the Fredericton tragedy also raised questions about the possible need for stricter gun control in Canada. Gun control in Canada has evolved significantly over the decades, reflecting changes in technology, public opinion, and political priorities. In 2019, Bill C-71 was passed, reaffirming the commitment to stricter firearm regulations. In May 2020, following the mass shooting in Nova Scotia, the government issued an order in council, PC 2020-298, banning numerous models of semi-automatic firearms and other weapons deemed too dangerous for civilian use. However, the SKS semi-automatic rifle, like the one used in several high-profile cases, like this one, was not among the banned firearms in PC 2020-298. For example, this model can still be purchased from Cabela's online for $549 with a possession and acquisition license, PAL. But you can order it online. That doesn't mean that they'll deliver it to your house. You still have to go pick it up, but they'll provide curbside delivery if you like. To obtain a PAL in Canada, applicants must be 18 and complete the Canadian Firearms Safety Course, CFSC. They must complete the Canadian Restricted Firearms Safety Course, CRFSC, for restricted firearms, like a handgun. They must submit a PAL application form to the RCMP, including proof of identity, residency, and references. The RCMP conducts a thorough background check, and the PAL is typically processed within 30 to 90 days. The PAL must be renewed every 5 years, despite the regulatory framework. Acquiring a firearm in Canada with the necessary steps is relatively easy. I'm all for people having access to firearms, responsible people. I like that the RCMP do background checks. For example, I don't have a PAL. However...
I'm your pal.
Yeah. However, if I want one, they are going to go and talk to ex-relationships. They're going to go and talk to other people who they think may or may not have a particular view of me as a person if I were to apply. I think they even look at your medical history, like you have to answer questions about, are you on antidepressants and things like that. I'm glad for that. I am glad for that. I don't think that you should just be able to go in with your ID and say, I'm a Canadian citizen, give me a gun.
Mm-hmm.
So, I like that we have checks and balances here.
I used to be a freewheeler with it.
Yeah.
I think that I wouldn't go any further than we do now. Because I think it's pretty robust. And I think if somebody wants to get a gun,
they're going to get one.
For bad reasons, they're going to get one.
Yeah.
Right?
And just recently, I read an article about a guy running around with a slingshot trying to hurt people.
I think it's relatively balanced right now. I wouldn't want to see it go harsher.
Yeah. And that's it for Dark Poutine episode 321, Summer Tragedy, the 2018 Fredericton shooting. That's right. It's time for voicemails. You can leave us a message at 1-877-327-5786 or 1-877-DARK-PTN. We'd love to hear from you. Let's see who called us this week. I guess we're on to voicemails and et cetera, and I have a few of them here, so let's have a listen to those, because here is our first voicemail.
Hi, I just wanted to say, read the book. So good. Also, Matthew, do you live in Gastown? Is it Gastown? Are you in Gastown? Gastown. Vancouver. You seem like a Gastown person, because you always have such good things to say. So, just wanted to know if that's, I lived there for 4 years, and I just want to know. Love you guys, and thanks for the book, and thanks for keeping me entertained every week. You guys have a great one. Bye. Oh, and shouldn't you too?
I actually live in Yaletown.
Yeah.
But kind of on the Gastown side of Yaletown.
Yeah.
So she wasn't far off.
Well, she called back.
Oh.
There was actually a drive-by shooting outside of Bronco Bar in Calgary. So if you want to cover that, that would be totally cool. Just trying to figure out, I think it might have been some guys from Edmonton. I don't really know. But, yeah, there's another story case for you. Bye. You guys are awesome.
Story case.
Yeah.
A story case. A story case.
It was a story case for us, but yeah, that's kind of fun.
Bronco.
Yeah, I'll look into it.
Sounds like a gay bar.
What do you think, if, I don't know, she's from Calgary, I guess, now?
Sounds like she's from, yeah.
She didn't give her name, which is interesting. But, okay, Madam X.
Madam X
is from, we're assuming a gender too, but Madam X is from where, Matthew? Is it from Alberta somewhere?
I'm going to say Calgary.
Okay, so from Calgary, and what does Madam X do in Calgary?
Well, you gave her the name Madam X.
Mm-hmm.
So I think she's, what's her name do?
That doesn't help me at all.
Dances in a giant martini glass. Like a dancer.
Like Betty Boop?
No, well,
oh, I know who you mean. I can't.
Cabaret sort of dance.
Okay, so she does cabaret dancing in a.
But what's that word I'm looking for? Like sultry cabaret.
Okay, burlesque.
Yes, sultry, otherwise known as sultry cabaret.
Sultry cabaret.
Burlesque dancer.
So she's a burlesque dancer.
Yes.
Well, there you go. It's not something I could possibly do.
You could do anything you want, Mike.
Nah, it would put people off their food.
Everyone has a fetish.
Oh, no, I don't think so. I don't think so. Anyway, let's move on to our next voicemail. Yeah.
Hi, Mike and Matthew. My name's Shauna. I'm from a small town in New Brunswick. It's Rosse. It's not well known. But I was going to wait till I caught up on all of your episodes before I decided to call in, but I changed my mind. I just listened to your episode on the John Lennon assassination, and I am a very big fan of the Beatles, same as you. In fact, my choir recently just sang Let It Be, and we'll be singing it at my graduation in a few months. Or not a few months, a few days. Wow. But I actually just went to New York a couple weeks ago and got to see the Dakota Building and stand at the memorial in Strawberry Fields. And I just remember just feeling so moved and remembering how much I loved John Lennon and loved the song Imagine especially. In fact, that song hangs as a poster in my house with all the lyrics. Anyway, I also want to say you guys do a great job on this show. I'll probably call in once again once I catch up, but figured I'd call in today. Love the way you covered the episode. Have a great day and go shit in your hat.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
And yeah, I really appreciate that. I am still a very big Beatles fan, and yeah, and that's why we covered that episode. And I want to go there at some point myself. I mean, the Dakota was also the building that was used for Rosemary's Baby, so
it's a double plus good time for you.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing.
Yeah.
So what do you think she's graduating from school? What sort of degree or diploma or
music?
PhD?
Music.
Okay.
Can you get a PhD in music?
You absolutely can.
Yeah. Does it have to be a specific type of music?
I don't think so.
Okay. Yeah. PhD in music.
Just PhD in music in general. Yeah. If I was to get a PhD in music, it would be a miracle. Because I can't play an instrument.
And congratulations on your graduation in a few days, which probably happened by the time we got this voicemail.
Right. Yeah. So
well done.
Enjoy that. All righty. So we have one more voicemail. Let's have a wee listen.
Hey, Mike and Matthew. It's Owen from Ontario calling here. Been a big fan of your show for a couple of years. I had a friend out in BC recommend it to me when we were living in Abbotsford. But I was wondering if you guys would ever consider covering the case of, I believe it was Debbie Timlock and James Brown in my hometown of Collingwood, Ontario. I got a lot of personal connections to that one, but I think there's a show on it. My mom runs a bakery out of James' old, or I guess his dad's old trading post. My friend's fiance used to live in Debbie's old apartment, and I'm actually just currently renovating James's old wartime house in town there. So, yeah, I just recently heard he got put back in jail, so I don't know if you guys wanted to check that out or not, but keep up the good work, boys, and go take a poop in your toque. Bye.
So I'm just looking at this case now as, this is new to me, and that's what came up for me, that parole was revoked for man who killed Collingwood woman in 1989. So interesting. It's not very often that parole is revoked. I'm going to perhaps look into that a little more.
That's from my neck of the woods. I'd be interested to.
Yeah.
I know what Owen does for a living.
What does Owen do for a living, Matthew?
Well, he's from Collingwood, but he's a DJ.
Okay.
And his DJ name is Owen Sound.
That's kind of cool. That's actually kind of great.
I'm picturing him like playing tunes on Wasaga Beach, beach parties.
Beach parties.
Yeah.
That's really kind of cool. I like that. I like that. Owen Sound.
Which isn't far from Collingwood.
No?
Yeah.
I've had some friends who lived in that area, but I've never been.
My cousin and cousins and auntie and uncle live there.
Really?
Yeah, one of them.
Well, that's kind of cool. Is Owen Sound is whereabouts is that? Northern Ontario?
If you think of Ontario as the southwestern Ontario as the elephant,
yes,
it's the bumhole. Right, and it's a lovely area. Like it's actually a beautiful area. But it's where its tail lifts and its butthole would be. That's where Owen Sound is.
Oh, so Owen Sound is the butthole of Ontario.
but
it's not.
But it's not. It's actually that's like right at the beginning of sort of Bruce Peninsula and stuff, which I think is, I've traveled the world, but that area in Bruce Peninsula, I think, is one of the most beautiful places in the world.
So, yeah. So Matthew is clarifying that just because lives in the butthole of Ontario.
It's not the butthole of Ontario.
It is not the butthole of Ontario. So then, what would be the actual butthole of Ontario, Matthew?
I'm not going to say because we'll have people that get angry.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. All right.
I'll tell you later.
Okay, please do. So I can avoid the butthole. That's it for this week's voicemails. Again, you can leave us one at 1-877-327-5786 or 1-877-DARK-PTN. We'd love to hear from you, even if it is just to say hi and to tell us to go shit in our hats. If you're stumped for what to chat with us about, a quick story is welcome. Alrighty, we are on to patrons and donut money donors, and we have a new patron this week, and her name is Katrina Murphy, and Katrina is from Scottsdale, Arizona.
No.
Scottsdale, Arizona. I love Arizona.
I used to love hanging out in Scottsdale. So my grandparents had a place in Mesa.
Okay.
But Scottsdale is like much cooler. And I used to go there. There were great restaurants.
Really? Great restaurants in Scottsdale?
Yeah,
like what kind? Lots of...
Well, I was young, but I just can remember being really impressed. Really like Scottsdale. It's a bit posh, Scottsdale.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I want to hang out more in that part of the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like it dry.
I think
so do my allergies.
I think she owns an art gallery in Scottsdale.
Okay, so Katrina owns an art gallery. What kind of art is her specialty, Matthew?
Pop art.
Pop art.
Yeah.
So like Warhol and stuff like that.
Yeah, but she does Western pop art.
Oh, interesting.
And just not Western as in cowboys and stuff like that, but pop art from West Coast and Western artists.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Well, thank you, Katrina. Very much appreciated. Scottsdale, Arizona. And we do have a donut money donor this week. And the person's name is Gordon Bird. And Gordon says, here's a couple of loonies for a couple of loonies.
Fantastic.
Well, thank you, Gordon, very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bird.
So I don't know where Gordon's from, but if he's got a name like Gord, he's definitely Canadian. He's got to be Canadian.
But he's actually from Duluth.
Duluth, Minnesota.
Yeah.
Oh, so he's sort of Southern Canadian then.
Yeah.
There you go. So he's from Duluth, Minnesota. And what does he do there in Duluth?
He has his own little brewery.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Does he brew strange brew? Have you ever seen that movie?
I think
with
maybe
Bob and Doug McKenzie
when it first came out.
Max von Sydow.
Strange Brew, is that their movie?
Yeah, that's
they only
their
did
movie.
one.
That they only did one.
Okay, 100% I saw it. Yeah. I just couldn't remember what it was called.
I was telling a friend about it.
I call it the Great White North movie.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I was telling a friend about it the other day, and I realized, wow, what a shitty movie. There's no reason.
Did you have the album?
Yes, absolutely.
The album was so good.
Yeah, it was really good.
With Geddy Lee.
Yeah, and the 12 Beers of Christmas.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I loved those guys when I was growing up.
Well, they were, pivotal 70s. Was it 70s?
70s, 80s, yep.
Yeah, late 70s.
Yes.
That was so Canadian, late 70s.
Very much so. Well, thank you, patrons and donut money donors. Much appreciated. Thank you very much. Thanks to all our patrons and donut money donors, past and present, for your generosity. It helps to keep the show going. You can become a patron of Dark Poutine at patreon.com/darkpoutine. For a one-time donation, you can send us donut money via PayPal using our email address, darkpoutinepodcast@gmail.com. If you don't already subscribe to the show, it would mean a lot if you did. You can easily find Dark Poutine on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows. If you haven't gotten yours yet, my book, Murder, Madness, and Mayhem, is available to order via a link on the Dark Poutine website. And speaking of darkpoutine.com, please check it out for show notes and other cool stuff. We'd appreciate it if you took the time to give Dark Poutine a like or a follow on Facebook and Instagram. Most importantly, thank you for listening, and tell your friends about us. Word of mouth is a powerful thing. And that's it for this episode of Dark Poutine. So until next time, don't forget to be a good egg and not a bad apple.
Bye.
Bye.